There's a certain group of people out there that love to tell black people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. These are also some of the same people that love to tell black people to take accountability for their actions. And the person you see on your screen looks a lot like some of those people. Of course, you have some people who look like us who will do the same exact thing. So it looks like we have yet another entry into the Brett Favre as the new well-fed KANG saga. I'm telling you, this is going to be ongoing for a while. Like, I don't know. Like, I have a lot of series of videos, but this one's probably going to be going on for a little bit. So, of course, the most recent one that I uploaded yesterday was leaning more on Phil Bryant more than anything, with the text messages about that pharmaceutical company. Well, this one just kind of fell into my lap unexpectedly because I'm going to be honest, I wasn't really going to look for anything Brett Favre related today, but someone tagged me in this on Twitter because they know I've been covering this story. So this new thing came out about Brett Favre literally today, October 11, 2022, that I'm talking about, where now he's claiming that he's being smeared in the media unjustly over this welfare fraud that he was a part of, that he claims that he had no idea or no knowledge of, as far as when it came to the $5 million grant that he got for the volleyball facility that he built for his daughter, and the other money as well. Even though we've seen all the text messages, that's what makes this whole thing with what he's saying right now, trying to make it seem like he's completely oblivious or unaware about what's going on. That's what makes this sound so silly, because we've seen the text messages. We've seen pretty much as we can see so far. There's no way in hell you can sit up here and say with a straight face to us, the public, and say you did not know. When clearly what the first message that you sent was, I hope the media doesn't find out about this, or something along those lines. Right there, you pretty much admitted that you knew what you were doing and what you were about to do. Like, it's crazy how he's going to sit up here and try to lie to our face, in our face, and claim he doesn't know what is going on and what he's doing. This is why I am following this story as closely as I possibly can, because lamestream media is not going to talk about it the way that they should. Remember, we had to get on ESPN for them to even utter a few words about it. There was a couple over there that did. I know people said Shannon Sharp did, and shockingly, even Stephen A. Smith did as well. But they're just two guys, and how ironically, they're two black guys over there. Where was all, the PC people, whether it be man or woman, to talk about this? Why isn't Fox News talking about it? Hell, why isn't CNN or MSNBC or any of these other affiliates talking about it as well? Because we know when it came to Michael Vick, Ray Rice, who was the other football player, the one who was disciplining his kid? I forget his name, and his name just escaped me, but y'all know who I'm talking about. When stuff was happening with them, Colin Kaepernick, when all of that stuff was happening with them, they could not wait to jump on it. And then, of course, with Ime Udoka, even though he's not in the NFL, he's still attached to the sports world because he's the coach, or was the coach probably now, of the Boston Celtics. They could not wait to harp onto that and literally lay into those stories. But when it comes to something as serious as this, which in my opinion outweighs anything all those other guys did, then it's a slow burn. And they try to say, oh, well, those guys were active when they did what they did. So even if Brett Favre was active, and say Brett Favre was active in the NFL when he did what he did, y'all still wouldn't have talked about it. You know why? Because you had, that guy Riley, the one who said those racist things at that festival? They blew that and threw that under the rug. He was active. When it came to that kicker from the New York Giants, they barely wanted to touch on that, but they kind of had no choice, so they had to be forced into that. And don't get us started on the football player who beat his black girlfriend damn near to death. Wasn't he active as well? When's the last time we heard about him? So when they say things along the lines of, oh, because he was not active, we couldn't really talk about it, that's BS. Because I just gave you a few examples of PC football players who were active, whether they're active now or not, but are active when they did what they did, and they barely talked about it. So they can miss me with that. That's why, as a black person in America, when it comes to racism and dub S, you have to have a sharp memory. You cannot afford to forget a thing. I don't care if you have to journal it or type it into your phone of this happening and this happening and this happening at this date and this date and this date. It happened on this time with this person and that person. That way you can go back through your records or your receipts and say, hold on, this happened right here. I'm pulling this out. So you cannot use this against me or against them or try to use it as a shield to block what it is that you're doing. You just have to. That's why it's easy for me to do this stuff. You know why? Because all the stuff that I just mentioned, I probably talked about at least once on my channel. Now that I've gotten that out the way, let me go ahead and get into the article itself that's coming from the Daily Mail. Brett Favre is claiming that he's been unjustly smeared in the media over his connection to a $77 million federal welfare scam in his home state of Mississippi. I have done nothing wrong, and it is past time to set the record straight, Favre told Fox News. Of course, he went to Fox News to say this. In a statement breaking months of silence on the issue, the Green Bay Packers legend has not been charged in the case, which has already resulted in several guilty pleas, but did receive a $1.1 million in welfare money for no-show speaking gigs. He has since repaid that amount, but has thus far refused to pay the $228,000 interest being charged to him by the state. As a result, Favre is among 38 individuals or organizations being sued by the state to recoup $24 million of the $77 million in federal welfare money. Furthermore, recently serviced text messages from 2017 revealed his efforts to divert $5 million in welfare to a new volleyball arena for the University of Southern Mississippi, his alma mater where his daughter was playing the sport at the time. In one message, Favre wonders, is there any way the media can find out where the money came from and how much? But in his statement to Fox News, Favre denied knowing the source of the funding, even though we see the text messages. Come on now, we saw the text messages and who you were talking to. Everything lines up. So are you going to try to tell us now that it was a clone? That it wasn't really you? That it was somebody else? He goes on to say, no one ever told me, and I did not know that funds designated for welfare recipients were going to the university or me, Favre said. I tried to help my alma mater, USM, a public Mississippi State University, raise funds for a wellness center. My goal was and always will be to improve the athletic facilities at my university. The lawsuit filed in May said Favre at one time was the largest individual outside investor and stockholder of Odyssey Health, a Florida-based company that was trying to develop a concussion drug. The suit said that in December 2018, Favre urged Prevacus CEO Jake Van Landingham to ask Nancy New, the owner of a Mississippi nonprofit, to use welfare grant money to invest into the company. And of course, y'all know I talked about that yesterday when I was discussing Phil Bryant. New, her son Zachary, and John Davis, the state's former head of the Department of Human Services, have all pled guilty in the case and agreed to cooperate with prosecutors. The suit also said Favre hosted a Prevacus stock sales presentation at his home in January 2019, attended by Van Landingham, John Davis, then the state's Human Services Director, New, her son Zach, and wrestler Ted DiBiase Jr., and that an agreement was reached to spend substantial welfare grant money in Prevacus and later in its corporate affiliate Pre-Sold IMD Inc. The company received $2.1 million over the next 10 months, which had been earmarked for the state's welfare fund. Officially, the funding diverted to Prevacus was for the purpose of securing clinical trial sites to be located within Mississippi, according to the lawsuit provided by the Daily Mail. Instead, the suit claims the money was used by individuals to purchase stock in the company. The state accused Favre, Van Landingham, and others of agreeing in writing to obtain welfare funds as part of a sham to conceal financial benefits to the conspirators. In his statement to Fox News, Favre insisted that everything was handled properly on his end, including his efforts to fund Southern Miss athletics with the help of News charity. State agencies provided the funds to Nancy New's charity, the Mississippi Community Education Center, which then gave the funds to the university, all with the full knowledge and approval of other state agencies, including the statewide Institute for Higher Learning. The governor's office and the attorney general's office said, I was told that the legal work to ensure that these funds could be accepted by the university was done by state attorneys and state employees. In a statement to Fox News, Mississippi State Auditor Chad White and said Favre's analysis was incorrect because temporary assistance for needy families, or TANF, cannot be used to fund such projects. The volleyball court needed to be used to benefit the needy in Hattiesburg, White said, referencing the Mississippi town where the Southern Miss campus is located. And fast forward to today, what we know now is that the volleyball court has not been used to benefit the needy. Of course it hasn't. As a matter of fact, the only picture we only saw, as far as I know, 2 pictures of that facility, which was an aerial drone-like shot of the facility, which looks more like the outside of an Olympics facility, and the inside where the girls were taking a picture on the court. Those are the only 2 pictures I saw. It didn't look like it was set up for anybody, for the needy, and it didn't look like nobody it even looked like a homeless shelter. See, like, he's getting caught up in his own lies. I'm telling you, they are going to be snitching on each other, which is exactly why, amongst other things, why I'm staying on top of this, because I cannot wait for the mudslinging to happen. That's going to be the more funny part of this entire ordeal. And trust me when I tell you, nothing about this is funny, but just to see them fight against each other is refreshing for me. It eases the mind a little bit. But again, anything involving this, with this theft that he's doing, because that's what he's doing, he's basically a thief, is far from funny. And for those reasons, I'm sorry, I almost skipped something. So this is an unallowable use of TANF funds for a few different reasons. And for those reasons, it doesn't matter that the attorney signed off on this. What matters is that it simply is not allowable use of TANF funds, and it's our job in the auditor's office to point that out when we see it. Specifically, TANF funds are not permitted to be used for brick and mortar construction projects, such as a new volleyball court on the Southern Miss campus. And although White admits there is no documentation showing Favre knew the funding came from the TANF fund, he was aware that the programs involved were supposed to help the poor. And that's what it boils down to. Brett Favre can sit here and say he didn't know where the funds was coming from, but the fact of the matter is he knew where the funds were going to. I'll say that again. It doesn't matter that Brett Favre, we know he's lying, allegedly didn't know where the funds was coming from, but he knew where the funds were going to. And he knew that those funds was not supposed to be going to these locations. And my thing is this: if you're getting all of this money and you don't know where it's coming from, wouldn't the first thing you want to ask is, where is this money coming from? Because you don't know where it could be coming from. All money ain't good money. But like I said, greed. When that greed kicks in and takes over, it's a wrap. Based on the documents that have come out publicly, mainly through filings in the civil case, we can see text messages that show that Mr. Favre knew that the money was being paid out was coming from John Davis, who was the head of the Mississippi Department of Human Services and also coming from the nonprofit that was receiving money from DHS. White told Fox News. So he knows that it's government money, basically, and he knows that the money is coming from the Department of Human Services. See, they pretty much said it right there, but he wants to pretend like he didn't know where it came from. Now, whether or not Mr. Favre knew that this money was specifically coming from temporary assistance for needy families, there are no documents out in the public right now that suggest that. White continued. There are no documents that suggest that he knew the precise laws and regulations around TANF funds, but he did know it was government money, and he did know that it was coming from this agency. And of course, that agency is the agency that is responsible for handling programs that are geared toward helping the poor. Favre allegedly paid the $1.1 million he received for the no-show speaking gigs to the school in order to help pay for the volleyball center. After I found out the money I was paid for fundraising radio spots came from the federal welfare funds, I returned all of it, Favre's statement to Fox News continued. He didn't, because remember that $228,000 in interest that he refuses to pay back. White shared that Fox News how his office discovered that Favre was paid welfare money for the no-show speaking gigs. The second piece of information in the audit that came out related to Mr. Favre was that he had been paid $1.1 million, White told Fox News. So when we asked questions about why did he get paid $1.1 million of welfare money, the nonprofit gave us a contract, what they called a contract that said Mr. Favre was supposed to give a keynote address and some speeches and cut a radio ad and do several other things. Upon further investigation, we realized that he had not given any of those speeches, that there was no justifiable reason for him to be paid that $1.1 million under TAMP regulations and the law. So eventually we had to demand that money back from him. And he has at this point repaid the principal $1.1 million. But in every case, when we have to demand money back, we always charge interest as well per the law. And he has not repaid the interest on that $1.1 million, which is why the state is now suing him. DHS as an agency is suing him along with many, many others trying to get that money back. And then I also, they go into talking about him funneling the money from his charities as well, which I did a separate video about that as well. It says, Favre's attorney Eric Hirschman, the lawyer who represented Trump during his first impeachment trial, told Fox News that his client was never asked to appear for those speeches, thus contradicting the claim that he no-showed for the event. Brett got paid for doing every radio spot that was requested, Hirschman told Fox News. He never got paid for a no-show appearance. Anyone who has claimed otherwise does not know the true facts. As for the 2017 text messages in which Favre asked New if the media would be able to learn the source of the funds, White says that the evidence supports the case that the NFL legend knew he was involved in something nefarious. Exactly. When he asked that question, he knew that he had gotten himself into something that he knew he should not have had. Because if you're not worried about this money, why would you send over a rather cryptic message like that? It's not really that cryptic because it's not like you got to try to decipher it. You're trying to cover your tracks. So when he sent that text message saying, is the media going to find out about this? That lets you know right there that he was about to engage in some illegal activity. Because who sends something like that if they know what they're doing is legal? Those sort of text messages suggest that he didn't want the information out, that he knew that there was something that suggested that this would not be favorable if it came out, White said. And there are also text messages that show that information had been communicated to him by somebody at the university and that they would be nervous about the money flowing for some of these projects. In defense for his client, Hirschman told Fox News that Favre's only concern was that the public will learn the funding came from a nonprofit and not that it actually originated with TAMP welfare. He had no idea that the payment came from TAMP, and had he known, he never would have accepted the money. That is BS. When he saw how much money that was, he would have taken it. I mean, look at all the other stuff that has come out. His lawyer, and like I said, this is Trump's lawyer, probably one of Trump's lawyers. Of course, is going to do everything he can to come for bat for his for his client, because that's what he has to do, even if he doesn't believe the words that's coming out of his own mouth. And I want to lean more towards the latter in saying that he doesn't believe the stuff that is coming out of his mouth, but he got to get paid. Anybody with a pair of eyes and a pair of ears that are working can clearly see and hear that Brett Favre is a crook. He is a thief. He is the new welfare KANG. He has more than earned that title. And that's the end of the article right there. But yeah, he can go around and try to spin this as much as he possibly can. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, Brett Favre, you may not be criminally charged with anything right now, and we can only hope that you will in the future. Same thing for Phil Bryant. But in the eyes of the court of public opinion, you are guilty as charged. And there are multiple charges. They better be lucky the court of public opinion could not have a hold of this thing and we weren't the deciding factor, because if we were, Brett Favre would have been locked up ages ago, and everybody else that's involved. But to try to sit here and try to make himself out to be a victim when he's really not, he can miss me with that. Like I said, you want to know why the state of Mississippi is so poor right now? It's because of people like Brett Favre. But trust and believe, it didn't begin with him. Those politicians down there definitely had a few hands in this as well. But they're going to they're going to have Brett Favre be the face of it because he's the bigger, more well-known person. But I'm glad that they are like spreading it out and exposing that there were other people involved as well. But the bigger question is, what's going to happen to them? Because like I said before, if they're not going to criminally charge them with anything, then this is just nothing but a bunch of wasted time and space. They actually have to do something. We know if Brett Favre was a black man, what they would have done. If Phil Bryant was a black man, we know what they would have done, or anybody else who's involved with this. If they were black, we know what the consequences was going to be. And they know it too. They know what kind of privilege they have in this society. They know what privilege they have. And for them to walk around here to pretend like they don't is absurd, and it's insane. But that's part of the privilege. Play dumb for as long as you possibly can, and it might work in your favor. And that's exactly what he's been doing for so long, which is why he was able to get away with so much. And even not even so long, because if you think about it, it's really been a short amount of time. But when there's a lot of money involved, it seems like time can spread a little thin. But yeah, Brett Favre is trash. And everyone else who's involved with this is trash just as much, if not more than he is. Going to take that money from people that actually need it. People are down there in Jackson, Mississippi suffering because of bad water. And that goes back to the politicians. That state is dirt poor. And that is because of people like Brett Favre, Phil Bryant, Nancy New, and all those others involved. That's why, like, when it comes to these states and the stuff that goes on with the states, it all goes back to the politicians. That's what it really boils down to and goes back to. But for this dude to sit up here and try to say that he's being smeared by the media, he said that because the media got a hold of it. He said it himself. I hope, he said the media's not going to find out about this. And they got it. Now he wants to claim that he's being unjustly smeared by the media. If he don't get the, you know what? I've already given my spill at the beginning, more so than at the end. Y'all got all the meat in between. Within the article, Brett Favre is just one of the worst people in America. Like, he's literally elevated in like the top 5 most worst people in America. And it's crazy because from stories that I've heard about him, he wasn't that far from being in the top 5, but this has definitely elevated and cemented his spot there. Like, if they had to do an awards for like at the end of the year of worst people, or like, you know, the top 10 people of the year, good or bad, we already know what category he would fall into and where in the list he would fall, because it definitely would not be after 5. There's probably some people more worse than him, but right now he is a focal point. And he needs to remain one. That's why I said on Twitter, do not let this story slip away, because that's what they want it to do. They want this story to slip so far into the background that you forget about it even happening. But I, and hopefully a few others, are not going to allow that to happen. That's why if there's anything that's coming out about Brett Favre, if I don't come across it first, send it to me and I will talk about it, because we have to keep this story alive. They want this story to slip and fade into obscurity, and we can't allow that to happen, because if this was us, they would never let it go. Think about what happened with Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown and Tamir Rice and so many countless others, people who lost their lives unjustly, and how they kept it in the news and kept it in a very negative way. This guy right here steals millions of dollars from people who need it, doesn't pay back the interest, now wants to claim he's being smeared by the media, even though he was the one that texted that he don't want the media to find out. And they find out, and now he's the victim. And these are the same people that tell black people to stop being the victim all our lives. What is he doing right now? That's going to be the end of the video. Y'all tell me what you think down in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you are new. Make sure to click the bell twice to get notified. If for any reason the bell is not working, I do upload my videos in the Premiere style format. Just click the notification button there and the notification will come your way. With that being said, the links will be in the description. I'll talk to you in the next one.